Good evening. Good evening. It's 6 p.m., so I will now call this May 14th, 2024 regular meeting of the Wenatchee School District School Board to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Esta junta se lleva a cabo en inglés, pero contamos con servicio de traducción. Si alguien gusta hacer un comentario público o recibir explicaciones en español, por favor, indique su necesidad. We will now begin working through the agenda. Are there any proposed changes or modifications to the agenda? None? So first up is the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda were sent to the board and posted online last week. The board has had an opportunity to review the material and individually ask the superintendent any questions on any item on the agenda. The consent agenda includes the minutes from the April 23rd, 2024 meeting, vouchers and payroll, personnel report, surplus report, contracts, summer athletics round 2, and the March financial report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second that motion.
Been moved by Maria, seconded by Martin. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have a discussion regarding of the contract for the campfire North Central, for that contract specifically. I would want to just to make a note in the minutes too. I am the president of the board for North Central Washington Campfire, so I didn't oversee this contract. I know in past discussions with our board and our director that we were doing more activities and reaching out for outdoor education. But I wanted to be that clear, make it clear in the minutes on their end. I wanted to just leave it at that.
Okay, so perfect. It's not a prohibited conflict, so thank you for noting that. And is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? No. Motion carries. We will now be moving on to citizen comment. As we move into the citizen comment portion of our agenda, we want the community to know that the board greatly values public comment regarding educational issues and understands the importance of allowing members of the community to speak to the board. The board has received public comment concerning the proposal to close Columbia Elementary at the last 7 board meetings, as well as 2 3-hour public hearings. In order to permit a fair and orderly expression of public comment, the board does have the authority to structure the oral citizen comment period, including determining the total time allotted for citizen comment. Tonight, we've elected to limit public comment to a total of 90 minutes. We would prefer to hear comments unrelated to Columbia closure first, if any. If we run out of time for all comments, you are welcome to provide future comments at a future meeting and submit comments online. So now, if any member of the public would like to make a citizen's comment, we ask that you have signed up online 15 minutes before the meeting or in person. Paper forms are available at the entrance of the meeting room and can be completed and given to the board secretary, Kim White. Unless translation is required, each comment is limited to 3 minutes, and Ms. White will keep a timer that will notify you when your time expires. If you need translation services from Spanish to English, a certified translator from CAFE is here to assist. Individuals that need translation services will be given 4 minutes to make their comment plus time needed to complete interpretation or translation. We have headphones available and will translate all English-speaking public comments into Spanish. Please feel free to use one of the headsets at the back of the table. Please also be aware the board is not obligated to respond to questions or challenges made during public comment, and the board's silence will not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. The board appreciates you being here this evening and would like to remind you that all public comments should adhere to the same standard of civility the board imposes on itself, and the board will exercise its authority to maintain order in a content-neutral manner this evening. So with that, Kim, do we have any public comments signed up? Okay, let's start with the online.
There were no online comments to my knowledge tonight.
Okay.
So hopefully everybody's here in person. Roxana Venata first up, and then Brittany Stevens.
Aaron, did you get up there first?
How about I just hold it? Good evening. During our recent discussions, a board member expressed concerns about the potential for categorizing and victimizing certain student populations at Columbia. This is a significant accusation, particularly given the historical closure of schools with predominantly African American and Latinx student population. It's worth noting that Columbia currently serves a student body where 73% identify as Latinx. As someone who has personally navigated the educational system as an English language learner, I shared my experiences, as have some of my colleagues who have supported students facing similar challenges. Our intention is bringing forth these perspectives is not to categorize students, but rather to shed light on the unique obstacles they encounter. We want to emphasize that advocating for underprivileged student population does not equate to categorization or stereotyping. Rather, it's about recognizing and addressing the specific needs and barriers faced by these students. By sharing personal anecdotes and tangible examples, we aim to humanize these issues and foster empathy and understanding among decision makers. Moreover, it's important to highlight the positive outcomes that can result from supporting underprivileged students. Research and success stories from other schools or communities demonstrate that targeted support initiatives can lead to improved outcomes for all students. The high growth at Columbia reflects the positive outcomes of high expectations. Ultimately, our goal is to promote open dialogue and collaboration toward creating a more inclusive and supportive educational environment for every student in our district. By focusing on shared objectives and fostering empathy, we believe we can move forward constructively without closing Columbia and address the needs of all members of our community. I firmly stand with any school who may be potentially be shuttered. After hearing that the idea of closing Orchard could become reality, I will choose to stand with those families and teachers if needed. Thank you.
Hi again. Hello. My name is Brittany Stevens. I am a parent of a Columbia kindergartner and a former teacher in Wenatchee School District and a current public teacher at Eastmont. For the last few weeks, I've been reflecting over the process of this whole proposed closure and the specific instances throughout it that have stirred various feelings in the community: lack of transparency, poor communication, issues with translation and interpretation services, a continued inability to provide an alternate solution as requested by the board, highly controlled public hearings that didn't have any opportunity for back and forth real-time communication. In fact, throughout the whole process, there really hasn't been an opportunity for us to sit down with the people with the answers and just ask questions and get those answers in real time. That's something that once that decision was announced, or the proposal was announced back in January, I was really looking forward to being able to get some more clarity of answers. Instead, it's been a lot of, controlled documents and FAQs and Q&As, and there have been a lot of community concerns that still haven't quite been fully addressed. And there's, a lot of other issues that have been difficult and concerning and frustrating for community members who are just trying to help solve the problem. So board members, I ask that you consider that tonight your vote is bigger than just voting to close or keep open an elementary school. In my mind, this vote either condones or condemns the way that this process has been handled. A yes vote in my mind says the way that this has been handled is acceptable and we can do it again in the future. And a no vote would say this wasn't okay, the way that we've the way that we've addressed our community and the way that we've avoided collaborative problem solving, and we can do better. So I encourage you to consider that in your voting tonight. And if there's even an inkling in your mind that anything about this process was unfair or unkind or inconsiderate of the people that you serve, consider that in your vote. I believe that we still have time to work together to solve this. I had the opportunity to be part of that Cougar Plan presentation a few weeks ago, and that was something that two teachers sat down together and were able to come up with in a few hours. Imagine if we had people who had all sorts of ideas and solutions and they were sitting together collaboratively. I think we haven't explored all of the options yet, and I haven't been convinced that this is truly the right and only option. So I just really hope that you will consider all of that as you make your decisions tonight. Thank you.
Lois Ferguson and Dorothy Ferguson.
If the school board votes to close Columbia and you're a parent of a child who has an IEP and receives education services, if you have concerns about your child's adjustment to a new school, you can request an IEP team meeting to develop a plan to help your child transition to a new school. Just write a note to your child's teacher, put the date, your child's name on the note, and sign it. An example, I request an IEP team meeting to make a plan to help my child be successful at the new school. As a parent, you have a right to request an IEP meeting to address your concerns about your child's transition to a new school.
Hi again. Did you see the recent headlines? Community organization rallies to partner with Wenatchee School District to keep Columbia Elementary School open. A healthcare provider reached out to interim superintendent to explore the possibility of an innovative idea to establish a healthcare clinic at Columbia School in unused classroom space. The clinic would serve Columbia students and the local community. It would provide services to high school and middle school students for sports physicals, which can take months to schedule now. And even the district said months ago that some students are not participating in sports because they can't get a timely sports physical. This healthcare organization sees the value to our children and community in keeping neighborhood schools open. They're offering innovative solutions to the district's budget problem and increasing healthcare services and connection to students and our community. Another recent headline, Columbia Teachers and Parent Advocacy Group present a plan to the District Budget Committee and the school board that aligns staffing to enrollment at each elementary with similar budget reduction savings without closing a school. Oh, you haven't seen these headlines? Well, that's because the community has presented these alternatives, but the interim superintendent and school board is not interested in these proposals, or it appears the school board is not interested in the proposals. And the school board denied the teachers and parent advocacy group an opportunity to present these alternatives at a school board meeting so that the larger community could be aware of what efforts their community is making to keep a school open. I hope I don't take away somebody's great quote, but don't cling to a mistake because you spent a lot of time making it. Despite the actions that the district has taken to transition students to new schools, if the school board votes to keep Columbia open, it will not be confusing for parents. They will just continue to have their student attend Columbia. One last thing, if you vote to close Columbia, pray every morning that Columbia students do not get hit by a car crossing Ferry. Thank you.
Francisca Fry, then Brian Hurling.
I want to thank you all for the opportunities to speak on behalf of my family and other families at Columbia School to lend our perspective on the potential closure. I am very anxious to hear the outcome of the vote. I am hoping that you will decide to let Columbia School continue to serve our children and community. My biggest concern for potentially losing Columbia School is for my son. He has special needs and is currently getting the appropriate attention that he needs to thrive within a public school. His care team at Columbia have been a lifeline for our family. We recently formed his IEP, and I'm happy with all the work that went into crafting his plan. I am, however, very concerned that his plan won't be achievable amongst staff that doesn't know him, and I wonder how they will find the time and personnel to accommodate his plan. If he is relocated and his new situation falls short of our expectations, I know it won't be the new team's fault. No doubt they will do the best they can with the cards they are dealt. As his parents, it's our goal for him to be able to continue in a public school setting as long as possible. I worry that if a transition proves to be too traumatic or unsuccessful, we may have to pull him from public school. It very much feels like a make or break situation for my kid. I'm holding out hope that Xander can continue to grow at Columbia with his team as long as possible for the betterment of his outcome. There's something else very important I'd like to point out about Columbia, and it has to do with the inclusive environment that has been crafted there. I have the perspective of being half Mexican, but I am light-skinned. I grew up on both sides of that cultural fence. I have such an appreciation of my family's heritage and contributions to this community. They came here with nothing, they fought to be here, and I watched my aunts and uncles become citizens and thrive while keeping their traditions strong. I always knew I was lucky to get to be a part of the Hispanic culture. Because I don't have dark skin, I also knew that it was easy for me to fly under people's radar as not being half Mexican. I heard the way kids at school or unassuming adults would subtly demonstrate negative opinions of Mexicans in our community and neighborhoods. I actually learned early on that it was wise of me to throw out that I was half Hispanic anytime I was in a crowd to avoid that awkward situation that they would say something negative, and I had no choice but to correct them. Columbia School has successfully created an all-inclusive environment where everyone is equal. It's not just a standard that's put out there to try and strive for, it's real. The staff and kids live it and breathe it every day. It's been so good for my heart to get to feel an environment like this. I've also loved how the school put on functions to share traditions with everyone, like the Dia de los Muertos party. I saw a gymnasium full of all people of all different backgrounds celebrating together. I saw a community embodied at Columbia. I cannot overstate how special it is to be a part of, and what a treat for me to have my kids who are mixed to get to be in an environment where their backgrounds are celebrated here. We need more of this in our community, not less. I think Columbia should be celebrated for this victory and held up as an example because of it. I want to thank all the Columbia staff for making such an environment possible. You created something really beautiful here. I hope it can last. Thank you.
I'm Brian Hurling. I'm a teacher at Westside High School. The most difficult decisions in life are when our heart and our brains disagree, when we know what needs to be done, but we wish it could be done differently. We stand at that fork in our road, peering down each divergent path with all the prescience and forethought and sight we can muster. Then we must make our choice, take our first steps down the path we have chosen, and we hope it will all work out for the best. Around the state, school districts face similar difficult decisions. Seattle, facing a more than $100 million budget deficit, just voted to close 20 of its 80 elementary schools, or 1 in 4. Bellevue, facing a $24 million budget deficit, closed 2 of its 16 elementary schools last year and may close a middle school this coming year. Olympia is facing a $3.5 million shortfall and is looking at potentially closing 2 of its elementary schools next year. Hoquiam is facing a $2 million shortfall and is closing Central Elementary School. And around the state, our communities are being hit hard by school closing for budget reasons. School boards, just like ours, grapple with how to balance budgets and the subsequent human costs of making fiscally responsible decisions. We are not alone, and I expect the number of school closures will continue to increase around the state. School boards, like this one, weigh difficult decisions between their heads and their hearts. This is not an easy discussion or decision. In the end, consolidating buildings allows us to keep more of the true wealth of our district, our people. Cutting the maintenance of a building from our bottom line will keep us from cutting more positions and jobs. Our Columbia is a good school with great educators, and we will not lose those people nor their expertise. Those great educators will go to other schools and make them even better. The good students at Columbia will go to other good schools and bring their spirit with them. If we do not close Columbia, the requisite cuts to other positions across our district will take behavioral specialists out of many of our schools. They will leave us with less administrative support. And more importantly, they will cost us more money, which will necessitate further cuts in the coming years. We simply do not have the money. I hate that fact, but it is a fact nonetheless. I wish these things were not true. I am sorry to the parents and the families and the colleagues at Columbia.
Thank you. Ann Young and Michaela Salgado.
I know, if it's not one tall person, it's another. This, you guys. I'm just gonna hold it. Okay, good evening. I want you to know that the only reason I've spoken to you about anything in regarding the closure of Columbia is because I believe in the potential of our students. I believe that they all have the ability to learn high levels and achieve great things. I also know that they have not all been dealt the same hand in life. Nothing has highlighted this as much for me as having my own children attend school at Columbia and their father's school at the time, which has nearly identical demographics. The harsh truth is that my own children have some privileges in life that not all children have. Privileges that make their learning experience in school easier. Privileges that mean they don't need the same supports from the school system as some other children. My children come from a home with two stable adults. Both adults can read and write. In fact, we can both read and write in English. We are both college educated. My children have both spoken English from their very first words. Both from their very first words. They have always had a home to live in and always known where they would sleep at night, next week, and next month. They have a home that is warm in the winter and cool in the summer. A home that has always had enough nutritious food for all of the people who live there. They have weather-appropriate clean clothing, a place to wash that clothing, and a place to bathe themselves daily. And yes, I recognize all of these things as privileges, as they are not a result of anything my children have done. They were simply born into an environment where these things were provided for them. But my own children attending Columbia in a similar school really highlighted to me what a difference these privileges make for a student and why we should be paying special attention to not only our own privileges, but the lack of those privileges for some of our students. The inability to see the differences in privileges among people is one of the most dangerous trends in society. So when I've spoken out as an advocate of my students and their learning experiences, I have done so because I believe in their potential, but also because I recognize that if we do treat them the same as my own children, they will not reach the same potential they will as if we see them for who they are and where they truly come from. I've seen firsthand what happens when students who are born into a life with fewer privileges than my own children are seen for who they are, and when adults advocate for them. I've seen their successes. I truly want that same opportunity for my students, for all of our students. But I recognize that for some to have that opportunity, they need special considerations because their lives have not given them the same privileges as my own children. So when I ask you to please not overcrowd a school with my students, with our students, some of our most vulnerable students, it's because I see their potential. It's because I see them for who they are and where they come from. And I'm simply asking you to do the same.
Thank you.
I'll hold it too. I can get back.
Good evening again. Before I actually start with what I actually wrote, I just want to say that to those who are saying that we're not losing our staff at Columbia, we are losing our staff at Columbia. I am one of them. I am one of those staff who's not going to be working, who doesn't have a job. But guess what? If Columbia stays open, I'm okay with that. I would rather lose my job and have these kids stay at Columbia. So to what I actually typed up, I want to address something that was said during the last board meeting. In no way am I or my colleagues trying to guilt any of you by categorizing or marginalizing populations. In reality, we would stand and speak for any students and families, no matter the background. And if you feel that what we have said guilts you, then it might be because you know something's not right with this. Gosh, I was losing my spot. All right. Oh, so the harsh reality is that we are categorized, no matter how hard we try not to be. In fact, we receive funding for having marginalized populations. Is that not categorizing? I also want to address that and make it clear that at Columbia, we do set our bar high, and our growth scores speak to that. Each and every day, we set high expectations for ourselves and for our students. We have stood here and spoken to you because we know and believe our students have great potential. In no way have we limited their potential. The reason why I have been speaking is for them, and it's because I know they have great potential. And maybe you don't know that because I haven't seen you at Columbia. As a person of color, I want to thank everyone who's been advocating for our community. Truly, thank you. I truly appreciate it, and I know students are grateful for you too. I will end with this. I have done everything that I can, speaking to you all, to do what is right for our students and families. I do not have any regrets. I will stand here before you any day for any of our students and families. I will be able to sleep at night and look at myself in the mirror after tonight, knowing that I was and will continue to be an advocate for all of our students. I hope you can also sleep at night and look at yourself in the mirror after your decision. And if you can't, then I wish you peace in your mind, because most likely your decision will weigh heavily on your mind if you choose to close Columbia. Again, I would lose my job any day to keep Columbia open. Thank you.
Aaron Geringer and John Price, fourth.
Okay, I think I got it. Maybe this time. Check my work. All right. Good evening. I was going to try to be brief. It's kind of bullety. Sorry. There's a lot to say. The decision before you, I get it. It's not an easy one. I would not want to be on the other side of that table tonight. So thank you for being here. But I think the message tonight you're going to send to the rest of us is very clear. Tonight, you're going to decide on the future of a school. Within that decision, rest the futures of many. We teachers will be fine. The admin, the classified staff will adjust and continue like we always do. I think the people that we really need to be concerned about are the kids and the negative consequences that they're likely to face if closing Columbia is what you choose for us tonight. If you vote to close Columbia, you'll be causing harm to the 350 kids who'll be relocated to a new school. Research shows that in this situation, there will likely be negative social and emotional consequences and tangible academic ones, not only for the kids that are being moved, but the students already in these buildings. This decision will force many of our most vulnerable students to endure yet another difficulty in their academic journey. The saddest part is that this difficulty that I'm talking about is your doing and completely avoidable. I hope you've heard a few things over the last 4 months. Here comes the list. This decision has been poorly managed from the start, and it hasn't improved. This closure isn't as much of a cost savings as been projected. The decision is not what's best for our students and the community that surrounds them. There are other options, but those options were left intentionally unexplored. The district cabinet has told us it was a done deal since January and has acted accordingly since. A closure will negatively impact nearly half of all of our elementary school students in some way. You can align staffing to enrollment without closing a school. There are other options that would do less harm, and finding a better solution could be accomplished. Our school isn't underutilized or designed to hold over 650 students with our current program offerings and needs. Please vote to keep our school open. Our school community is thriving, and we deserve, just like every school here, to continue to do what our students need to help them grow and succeed. The last thing we need is another roadblock to help our students overcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got another tall person, don't worry. Actually, I might, I don't know. Good evening, buenos noches. This is my 12th year teaching and my third in Wenatchee at Columbia Elementary. I would like to thank the school board and cabinet for listening tonight. I've spent time in many schools over my career, and Columbia has been overwhelmingly the best culture and environment I've ever experienced. The behavioral supports and academic supports have been unlike anything I've ever been around before. A school district should never propose to close its highest growth elementary school that is performing at a high level instructionally and behaviorally. You will not be able to replicate this thriving culture. Elementary schools are a delicate ecosystem and a delicate and intricately balanced environment. Columbia is like a spider web. There's a famous African proverb that says, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. For a short-term solution, this will have lasting effects. Thank you for your time. Muchas gracias.
Kyle Diaz, then Jessica O'Connor.
Good evening. Just want to wish all the mothers out there happy belated Mother's Day. You guys are awesome, especially my wife at home that's watching our 3 children right now. But onto the school. Previous school board that sat at this very table here, the group of members here, they trusted Columbia with introducing the TK program to the Valley. And not only did they take it on with every good intention, they succeeded and they thrived. They have become very effective in what they do there. And that's pretty much a great example of what Columbia is there and their education, how they do things there. And while also providing a lot of effort and resources to the TK program, they were also providing, continuing their excellent growth scores and competitive test scores. Not having this school as an option to the Wenatchee School District is similar to the retail environment, in my opinion. If you limit your inventory, you will also limit your revenue. Closing this school is going to close the community off to the personalized culture Columbia has developed that is the foundation of their success. Please, when you make your decision tonight, think about the amount, well, lately, on all your guys' meetings recently, been talking about a lot of new programs you want to give the high school students. You want to give more success to their futures. When you make your decision tonight, think about where it all started for them, because they were all elementary schools here too, or elementary school students. So thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Corey, Martin, Tucker, Miranda, Maria, and Julie. It's me again, Jessica. Here we are, May 14th, 2024, D-Day. D is the 4th letter in the alphabet. D, decision day for us, for Columbia. D, donut day for the Columbia kindergartners. It is the alphabet letter countdown to summer. And the teachers are making it memorable, so memorable, special, even during this hard and emotional time. Thank you, Mr. Wiggins, Miss Young, Miss Salgado, who isn't a teacher next year, but she every day teaches my daughter, every single day. Thank you, Miss Salgado. Tonight, it's D-Day, decision day. We learn if Columbia will remain to teach more students or if you, the combination of each one of you, somehow, some way, will close the doors to the most underprivileged, the most minority group of youth and shuffle them around. Is this the year the Wenatchee School District loses any hope of ever passing another bond or levy? Wenatchee School District can make a difference. The decision to not even entertain any of the other viable options that have been presented since January 19th is ludicrous. I am asking for the last time this school year, please vote no. Don't close Columbia or any school. Maybe the Cougar plan isn't the golden key, but it was a dang good option. I'm very proud of you guys. I watched it and there was some good information in there. Maybe we could gather some of this stuff. Had some good points. Closing a school shouldn't even be an idea when there are other options, many viable options. Let's work together. We can all work together. We can make a difference. The decision that you guys need to make tonight is a decision that you need to be proud of. It's already been said tonight, the decision when you go to sleep, something that you can go to sleep and be proud of. You need to make the right decision. Vote no, don't close Columbia. Thank you.
Jamie Johnson and Katie Borison.
Thank you. I'm just going to quote from the last board meeting. I want us to be careful not to victimize our marginalized communities, to guilt people or try to convince people to vote either way. And I'm standing here to address this statement because by definition, marginalized communities exist within systems that consistently fail to meet their needs, often burdening them disproportionately and sacrificing their well-being for the privileged majority. Overcrowding our most vulnerable schools is one glaring example of this ongoing marginalization that demands our attention. Seattle's decision to spare 2 Title I schools from closure serves as a reminder of our collective responsibility to do better. Though you personally may not have experienced it, injustice and discrimination do exist within our community and within our school district systems, and we have an exciting opportunity to dismantle the harmful, discriminatory, and unjust structures, policies, and workplace cultures that we didn't put in place, but that still can exist in some pockets. When marginalized communities courageously share their stories and experiences, any ensuing feelings of guilt upon hearing those stories are not about personal attacks, but indicators that our moral compasses are functioning. Feeling guilt isn't about blame. It's about recognizing where we need to improve and ensuring that our actions align with principles of equity and justice. And I trust that no one here has intent to harm kids. It's important and crucial to understand that intent does not negate impact. So if our impact is that we're harming kids, end of story. Thank you for your attention to this. And I'm excited to embrace the opportunity to chart a course towards more conscientious and equitable future for all of our kids in the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go. I'm Katie Borison. I'm a school nurse in the district, and I also work at Confluence Health as a nurse. I spoke at the last meeting and emphasized that although we don't like to think of the school district as a business, it is. I think the business is financially struggling, and I think we need to think about the big picture to continue to provide services to all of our students in our community. I don't envy your position tonight, any of you in those seats. I don't envy the decision you have to make tonight. It's going to be a difficult one, but I trust that you'll make the decision that will allow our students to continue their learning journey in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that is all for tonight. I did have one that what's your name? Okay. It looked like your name got removed, but I do have you. So yes, I was going to call your name just because your name wasn't on the final list, but yeah, it's your turn.
Good evening. I'm Maura Platts. I'm a teacher at Columbia second grade. Today, you will make a decision between two choices, closing Columbia this year or closing Columbia at the end of next year. However, these two choices are a false dichotomy that represent a failure of imagination. Columbia has the highest student growth scores in the district, not only in this district, but compared to the rest of the state. Columbia's student growth, according to OSPI, is in the top decile, a 10 out of a possible 10. The other schools in Wenatchee do not have this level of student growth. Lincoln in particular appears to be a school in need of improvement. Washington had better growth than Lincoln, but still not at the level of Columbia. As a parent, you would not choose to remove your child from a school where he or she was succeeding and place your child in a school with lower levels of student success. As parents, we want our children in the best schools. So as a school board, as a district, as an organization tasked with educating our city's future, why would we ever choose to move at-risk students from a school with high levels of growth to schools with lower growth? If a school must be closed, it could provide an opportunity to move students out of a less successful school into one where students succeed. Instead, the proposals you are given today suggest moving students from a successful school into lower achieving schools. Today, parents do not get to make this choice. You do. The only moral choice is to choose for Columbia's students as you would do your own. Keep them at Columbia. Go back to the drawing board and create a plan in which a lower achieving school is closed, boundaries are redrawn, and students are placed based on growth achievement data in a way that maximizes the educational opportunities for Wenatchee's children. Today, your decision needs to put data over dollars. The correct choice is clear. Today, vote to keep Columbia open. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you, everyone. Next up on the agenda, we have our action item, the decision on the closure of Columbia Elementary School.
Excellent. And I'll start us off there. As it's been mentioned, today is a crucial day for the Wenatchee School District as it determines its long-term financial stability. I strongly believe that empathy should be taken into consideration while making this decision and its impact on people. We need to be empathetic toward the needs of others, regardless of which side of the decision they are on. Tonight, we need to think about how we are considering the needs of our Columbia stakeholders, our students and our parents and our staff and the local Columbia community. We also need to think about how we are considering the needs of those outside of the Columbia community and those who believe that the school district's proposal is a sound financial decision. We should also take into the account the demands and the pressures that have been placed on our school board of directors and that they have faced during this process. After the final verdict has been reached, I urge everyone present in this room to remain calm, show forbearance, kindness, and understanding towards others in this room. Tonight is the time for us to remember that no matter the outcome of this decision, we are still the Wenatchee School District. And it is our paramount duty to educate, support, and maintain the safety of our students. We will all remain student-focused with their needs in mind moving forward. And although some may not agree with the steps taken by the Wenatchee School District to propose the closure of an elementary school, or even the financial crisis that we are currently experiencing, one thing is for certain: the financial stability of our district is on the line. We know that many other districts around the area, in the state of Washington, and in the nation are grappling with their own ways to balance their respective budgets. Tonight, the school board is faced with making a decision about what is best for the Wenatchee School District students. A decision that allows our students to continue going to great schools, being taught by highly skilled educators, and with all options available for each of the 6,800 students in our school district. By potentially choosing to close Columbia for the 24-25 school year, we are making the decision to support options for all Wenatchee School District students. We all share the common goal of improving the Wenatchee School District's financial situation. Our objective collectively is to align our revenues and expenditures and provide the best possible learning environment and high-quality instruction to our students. We are all here to work toward that goal. We know that nothing is more important than creating an environment that sets all of our students up for success. We are currently facing a challenging situation, and the decision that we make will have a significant impact on the future experiences of the students in the Wenatchee School District. By making this decision, we can potentially consolidate our educational delivery while preserving programs, resources, and opportunities that continue to make our district a place where students thrive, are seen and valued, and feel safe. The Wenatchee School District is recommending that Columbia Elementary be closed for the upcoming 24-25 school year. This recommendation to choose option 1, as presented on April 9th and April 23rd, is being made in order to maintain the district's strong financial reserves, which will help us to navigate the uncertainty of declining enrollment and bring our reserves and expenditures into closer alignment. Additionally, this allows us to take advantage of the large number of provisional employees in the district, thus avoiding a modified education plan and the need for potentially major staff reductions in the following year based on enrollment. President Norton, I pass it back to you to call for a motion.
Thank you, Dr. Callahar. Do I have a motion to approve the closure of Columbia in the 2024-25 school year?
I move that we approve the proposal of option 1 as presented in the April meetings.
Do I have a second for discussion?
Can we talk about it first?
Yeah, move in second, then discuss.
Okay, seconded.
Any discussion?
I asked President Julie, I'll bring this closer so you can hear me, for time to explain this vote more fully because it is one part of a big picture. Like many decisions, this one has logic aspects and human aspects, neither of which can stand alone. Both must be considered. Even then, a third leg is needed to make a stable stool, which is the action part that brings the human and logical parts to work together. You might call this the how, and it is often the most important thing that needs to be done. If logic drives the core choice, we need to identify where there are human losses and act to mitigate. Thinking positively, there might be places where we can grab human gains. If human aspects drive the choice, we need to use logical reasoning to incorporate benefits and advantages that make the whole stronger. Before I was a member, I watched the board be trained to presume good intentions, and I think that's important for all of us. This critical behavior is essential to retain colleagues and neighbors as allies and have open pathways to mutual benefit outcomes. I'm just going to go impromptu for a moment, having listened to the heartfelt testimony that for, I guess, 4 months now almost. It really is meaningful. It is sincere. I want to thank you all for doing it. And I'll add something else. Later on, I talk about ideas briefly, but ideas come from everywhere. If one is not adopted now, it still may well be valuable in the future. Budget resources are always limited. describe it as a quota of dollars per student with supplemental enhancements which cannot be diverted for other purposes added for certain categories of student. We, the people, determine the revenues indirectly through our legislatures and directly by our votes on levies and bonds. Living within our means is a shared accountability. Managing budget expenditures becomes a search for reasonable choices. No individual is entitled to exactly what they prefer. Recommendations and suggestions can and do come from anywhere. Understand that the many players have particular roles in a complex division of authority with checks and balances. When a choice falls within the board's area of authority, such as tonight, decisions must be taken by the group together collegially. Once a decision is made, the required conduct for individual members is to be supportive of the approved efforts. Being willing to work for a chosen plan to succeed is a good mindset. We aren't facing a 1, 2, or even a 5-year budget fix. Wenatchee School District needs a 25-year budget plan for a changed and changing environment in the nature of the job market and the kinds of knowledge needed for careers. The demographic consequences of globally declining birth rates and residence patterns driven by the cost of housing, expanded choice in the kinds of schools and education both inside and outside public education, and finally, accelerated change in the technology and architectural facilities needed for education and learning. Today's decision is a step that needs to be consistent with long-term considerations and goals. This full spectrum planning process is underway with the formation of the Facilities Committee. Finally, getting off the background, so you can be relieved. The district administration's analysis information, to me, is in its essence accurate. Our school district's elementary schools are designed for a nominal 200 to 600 student capacity, which is a cost-effective way to provide a comprehensive range of inclusive educational opportunities and also cater for extended mandatory services. This is the way they were built. This is the way they are staffed and equipped. Should the model be changed? To be cost-effective, small schools would need to reduce their offerings. I accept the professional recommendation for the existing model. We do have too many elementary schools, and yes, the inefficient use of budget resources is likely to continue and hurt. Enrollment at 80 to 85% of nominal capacity would be reasonable, perhaps. Too close to 100% would stress people in the system. 70% on average, as today, is not sustainable. Reducing to 6 elementary schools would raise that average to about 82%, facing an exposure of perhaps 15% declining enrollment per demographic studies in the next 10 years. This need to cut operating costs will repeat every year and probably become more severe. Also, one less location to be renovated will save capital expenditure. At say $25 million every 25 years, that would be another $1 million per year that can be saved and used for other purposes. Is there a better location to shut down? That's a really, really important question, and I personally do not find one. The district has sibling elementary schools. Improvement programs and standards are common to all of them, and all are beautiful communities. All have dedicated and professional staff. I have absolute faith that the sibling schools have the same path to excellence. At any given moment, the degrees of progress will vary. The Columbia Cougar community is full of vibrant humanity. You're testimony to that. All ages in that community deserve admiration and respect for the top of the class performance your human effort has achieved. I identify 3 continuing budget options. The proposal recommended very substantial cuts to academic, extracurricular, and social well-being programs that impact all ages and locations. And the third one, drive the district into financial fault and external administration. I believe that the option to delay 1 year would be disadvantageous, perhaps even dangerous. The enrollment decline has accelerated. Much district revenue does not increase to pay for increased inflation. which has recently been abnormally high. Reduced hiring skews the workforce to employees with seniority and higher compensation. It's another budget blow. These factors land on top of existing budget reductions planned to deal with the end of federal pandemic funding and the previously projected reduced enrollment. Wenatchee School District is a prompt reactor to adverse budget conditions, which is why the fund balance reserves are still adequate and the latest Moody's credit rating is strong. Administration cuts have been made and more are planned. Employee organizations are constructive and cost-conscious partners. I do not favor reducing compensation below market levels. That's one of the ideas that's been floated. We need to be competitive and retain high-quality employees for the demanding work of schools. My and our duty is to balance the interests of all who are affected by this situation and decision in a fair way. There is the human aspect of weighing immediate pain against the disadvantage that may endure. The equity dilemma when the distribution and timing of pluses and minuses is uneven. And finally, applying logic to judge when something is unique and when it is possible to transfer it. I consider the North Central Educational Services District to be the blue chip expert opinion. They know our North Central Washington world and its education. They're well connected externally at state and national levels with trends and developments. Their review and assessment of reasonableness matters. I'm going to close with two asks. My first ask is for the district to budget adequate extra resources for the transition. Columbia students and staff need extra support to transit the shock of change. The destination sibling schools of Washington and Lincoln need to be equipped to give newcomers a full welcome and manage the peak first-year demands of operating at full utilization. And street safety and enhanced bilingual services are also important. My second ask is please be part of the solution, even if you are personally disappointed. We are sibling locations, and I hope that replicating talented work can be a rewarding gift. Thank you for listening.
I appreciate your comment, Martin. I did not get a chance to review Martin's comments before the meeting, but I value and agree with everything Martin has stated. So I'll try not to repeat myself, but we are all facing a challenge in public education. Wenatchee Public Schools is not the exception to those challenges. And just like we did during COVID, regardless of today's decision, we will persevere, adjust, and be stronger. The reality is that we are in a financial crisis, and it would be unfair to our kids, staff, and constituents to continue down the same path. I also know that spreading resources so thin across half-empty schools so that kids don't get art, music, counselors, intervention, administrative support, it doesn't work. As a board member, it's my responsibility to make sure that all of our kids and staff have the necessary resources and tools to create lifelong learners. As one of our educators in the district said in an email, quote, "If we could say anything to our families of Columbia, we would say the new school year your child will attend is filled with amazing teachers who are dedicated to learning of their students. Their teachers are kind and caring and will do whatever it takes to help your child succeed academically, socially, and behaviorally. Your child is going to be okay. Your child will thrive at their new school." End quote. And I could not agree more. Their comments?
Okay, so I've written it out. So to my fellow board members and Dr. Kalahar, these last several months have been eventful to say the least, especially serving on this board since November of 23. I can agree it's taken an emotional and mental toll on everyone. Not only for us just sitting here today or watching online, but our entire community, our students, our parents, our Columbia families and staff. I understand and acknowledge there's been an ongoing tension directly and indirectly among all of us. I agree the district didn't communicate effectively with this proposal on closing, and there was conflicting information that shared on all platforms on what was happening or what would happen. I acknowledge since then that our district has made attempts at improving on providing an effective communication to the public. I have seen accountability being had among the district and cabinet members to assist our community and families with questions and clarifying concerns to the best of their ability. I remind everyone that Rome was not built in a day, then everything does take effort and time. Since January, I have taken a hard emotional and mental toll regarding this proposal of Columbia. I remind everyone that this decision is not easy, and I have compassion and empathy for others going through the roller coaster events at Columbia. I remind everyone that this community had voted not only for myself, but for Julie, Maria, Tucker, and Martin, and had with the faith and the belief that we have the qualities to represent you as the community. In addition, you as the community have asked us in our past during campaigning season regarding the budget and the future of the district. To all of us have answered in similar responses, and that we acknowledge there is a financial crisis in our district due in part of what had happened in June of 22 in declining enrollment. I had advised voters in the community that it is a difficult task to review these financial budget decision makings, and it's a hard decision regardless of what expenses would need to be cut and assist the district financially on a temporary or a long-term basis. It is reviewing our financial situation with a fine-tooth comb, as I had mentioned in prior interviews, and holding those accountable and advising the district and providing that transparent information to the public so we as a community can gather further understanding and rebuild that trust with the district. And I stand by what I had advocated for and continue to do so for the community, even though it may not been as easy as in the beginning of what happened in January. I do see those improvements being made slowly but surely, not just by the cabinet, but also among the district. I sit and reflect every day, what's going to mean the best interest for our Columbia students, our educators, and our families for Wenatchee. I agree with public comments that have been made directly for our special education students and some students that do not adapt to change with this decision and transition for our high need students that may be affected, as their routine is going to be changed. Their environment is going to be different. And there are some staff that had put their devoted trust in also, is different. And some of the staff, they had put their devoted trust in also change. I also state there are studies that had shown that when this change does happen to our high need students and that the change had turned into something positive for our students and had shown strides in improvement in families that had built a bigger and a stronger network of support from the district staff and community members or other agencies. I recall this district in the 90s had to complete a redistrict plan for all students and families. Families who had engaged in this change were upset and that they had considered to homeschool their children or to transfer their children elsewhere, and that their students would be displaced from going to a different neighboring school. My husband's family was one of those families that they had felt they were being displaced and had to be moved from Columbia to Lincoln Elementary. My husband, remember, he and his brother were upset with this decision and opposed this greatly. My in-laws were initially opposing this as they themselves were a Columbia alumni and wanted their children to attend Columbia. However, with the guidance from the district and district staff, not only my husband and my in-laws felt acceptance with Lincoln, but they were reminded by the staff in the district that there are educators and families who will provide that same educational support, same emotional support with this transition and help them become a part of their school family. My mother-in-law and other parents involved in their PTA had changed their mindset and wanted to assist helping families with this transition and ensured everyone would be accepted and help them with this difficult transition. If not that change with the redistricting, my husband would not met his closest friends. My in-laws would not have met a strong rapport with that they would have with Lincoln staff and lifelong friendships. A statement that has sat with me for these last several weeks, a member of our community had stated was, "We are punishing them for their success." I praise the work Columbia has done these past years and this current year for their students. Everyone should be proud and continuously praise our Columbia students and our staff and families that all have taken part in this. I also believe that with this statement that had been made had been indirectly affected on how some may feel about our other schools like Mission View, Washington, Lewis and Clark, Newberry, Lincoln, and Sunny Slope may not have been the highest growth scores like Columbia. However, all of our other schools are showing growth in other ways, meeting a standard on a smarter, balanced assessment, and do have amazing staff and students that thrive and stand out in many ways that make them unique, such like Columbia, and shine bright. I applaud for the work for our elementary educators and staff who have done so to assist our students, and this is what we all as a community need to be proud of. Another comment that has been made as we as the board fail or may not understand that the families and staff are currently going through. Myself and my colleagues sitting here today have endured life in different ways that may not be similar to everyone else's in the community. Some of us have endured financial hardships, emotional and mental trauma, and ongoing changes in our younger years. With our life experiences, we all have grown and learned to adapt in our own way that we can all call life. And having the opportunity to sit here on this board and serving this community is giving us the opportunity to provide guidance to the community of what our experiences and the knowledge that we can provide to you. And for those that may not know, I've resided in the Wenatchee area and I was a product of the Wenatchee School District. I love learning. I have the love for learning for more deep roots of our valley and how Wenatchee has come to be. I have taken this opportunity to review a piece of our history of our Wenatchee Public Schools from 1883 to 1971. So that's a long gap right there. Although Washington State did not become an official state until 1889, Wenatchee was a territory and Chelan County was only part of Kittitas County until 1900. When reviewing these documents, it's come to show that Wenatchee has undergone a series of significant changes then. Some of those changes where schools have come and gone. What used to be the North End School had been closed for consolidation to create a South End district, which was Stephen and Whitman schools, in which to help form the Wenatchee School District. Other schools such as Whitman Elementary, where Wells Fargo Bank sits now, and Ellison Junior High School, near where it used to sit where the old Wenatchee High School was, and it was divided by a fire door, have come and gone due to redistricting and budget shortfalls. Malaga has its own zip code, and yet did you know there used to be a schoolhouse out there for schools, but due to the annexation for the Wenatchee School District, they had shut down the Malaga schools to have that be a part of the Wenatchee School District. And change has been difficult over time, yet Wenatchee has learned from this and has found ways to strive and to better serve our students, educators, and our families. I've had the opportunity to be a part of our facilities committee along with Tucker. And after last month's meeting, we've received demographics report from the Regional Sports Complex Feasibility Study, which was disclosed from that meeting, and reviewing the declining enrollment were families moving into this area that were increasing our population in this valley, which is positive. However, the demographic information showing that there were an older community or families with no children or children enrolled in public schools. What this presentation had shown also is that others similar presentations such as diverse demographic is a trend declining enrollment among other neighboring districts and statewide. Wenatchee is not the only district as we currently know now going through this hardship. Like our neighbors up north in Chelan and Manson, Waterville is currently facing their struggles with students currently moving from their area. Leavenworth had recently announced of their of making future financial hardships. East Wenatchee facing a double bond failure, and now most recently with Moses Lake with a double levy failure and having a financial crisis of their own. Seattle is facing nearly double of what Wenatchee is facing with financial hardships and facing decisions of closing schools and other extracurricular activities and potential resources for families as well. After this, with a heavy heart, I vote that closing Columbia would be the most feasible option. This is a financial budget that has been difficult to say the least, and not only affecting Columbia, but all of our elementary, middle school, and high schools. Change is significantly hard, but I have seen our community endure through the hardest of times, and I know we as the community can rise up from this and find a solution to move forward to help our students, our educators, and families through this difficult time. It really does take a village for positive change, and with the declining enrollment that we have experienced since post-COVID, we as the district need to make these significant changes, not only to have our budget not only for our budget, but to show others in our community what Wenatchee School District has to offer.
Thank you. Other discussion?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out.
Over the last few months, we've spent a lot of time together, so it seems natural that we're here at the end. I know this has been a really painful process, especially for the Columbia community. And even if we stretched it out over a longer time frame, I still don't think it would have been any less sad. I do think that there would have been ways to make it less difficult, that there are ways we could have built community trust instead of losing it. And I want to make sure that we look at them now so we can turn this into a learning experience for Dr. Kalakar and the district staff instead of just a miserable couple of months for all of us. The first thing that needs to change is how the district communicates ideas. Can't be afraid of brainstorming and can't be afraid to include the public in that process. The Valley is dealing with complicated problems, and as the Cougar Plan shows, we have a lot of smart people willing to put their time and experience to work trying to solve these problems. The Columbia closure process kicked off as a rumor instead of as a discussion about a viable option to address a severe budget shortfall. And that was the difference between starting off on the wrong foot and the right foot. The second thing is the district needs to work on when they communicate ideas. School is out in a month, and we're still talking about whether or not one of our elementary schools is going to be open next year. We should have started this conversation earlier. And since we already know we need to make cuts next year, I hope we start that process now instead of waiting until January 2025. The third thing is that we need options. The district has consistently talked about things they looked at, things like bringing 6th grade into elementary, split grade classrooms. The ideas of that were ultimately presented as a not recommended list. But here we are at the decision time, and I'm looking at 2 scenarios that look a lot like one scenario. It is important to acknowledge that we have had 4 superintendents in 5 years, that Dr. Kalahar has been on the job for less than a year. He and the district staff are doing their best to address a shortfall that they didn't create and didn't have sufficient time to plan for. But going forward, they need to do better because we can't make decisions like this again. So that's what we got here. You guys, this is 7 minutes without applause break. So, so that's how we got here. Now we have to make a decision. At the April 23rd meeting, I read a list of things with different factors that I'm considering as I evaluate scenarios 1 and 2. I thought about addressing all of them point by point for you tonight, but I'm going to hit the highlights instead. I'll start with the impact of students. Over the course of this process, I've done a lot of research on educational theory, and I've found that reading about education online is a lot like reading about parenting online. You can find a blog or study that aligns with your opinions and another directly contradicts it, and they both say they're right. So instead of going down that internet rabbit hole, I went to the buildings and talked with the people educating our kids. What I found at every building was dedicated staff working hard to meet the needs of every student every day. I also found that it's really hard. Post-pandemic, we were dealing with a different student population than we have ever had before, and supports like assistant principals, intervention specialists, and counselors are vital to keeping the system running smoothly. Teachers need to be able to teach, and with the state limits on how schools can address behavioral issues, these additional staff, most of which you saw on the not recommended list of cuts, take some of that responsibility. While here in the physical buildings, you see 2 things. Those Davis demographic capacity limits are ridiculous. And 2, that there's still space in every building. Washington and Lincoln were built for and can handle 4 classes at each grade level. There is room for more students in most classes without going above contracted class sizes. They're still going to be able to meet the needs of students with IEPs, keep specialists in their own rooms, and feed everyone lunch in a timely manner. Academically, we'll have to see. There has been a lot of turmoil this year, and I think that will definitely have an impact on academics regardless of where students are next year. During this process, though, I was presented with researcher John Hattie and his list of factors related to student achievement. Class size was 186 on the list, but the most important was collective teacher efficacy. I'm confident that if we continue to provide teachers with the supports they need to be effective in the classroom, students will bounce back from this and we'll see high growth scores return. Some of the other cuts we talked about were extracurriculars like sports. And here's where I need to remember that I represent all 7,174 students in the district. One of the high school students at a superintendent supervisory council meeting gave me a good perspective on this. She said, these are her words, that elementary school students are being taught basically the same thing at every school in the district. If they have to move schools, they're going to be in the same place as other students in their new class. On the other hand, middle school and high school students are figuring out who they are. They need to try new things like theater and sports and art, to see what they want to do with their lives. Extracurricular opportunities change lives, and in a few years, those lives will be the kids in the elementary school right now. Okay, so I'm going to step back from those comments and say that I recognize this is an oversimplification of what it's like for elementary school students to move schools and an excessive emphasis on the value of extracurriculars. But I think that the point is important. I will also say that I moved schools 5 times between kindergarten and 8th grade. My 2nd grade was half full of 1st graders, and sports played a role in my college decision. So I have some personal experience with a lot of what we're talking about here. Overall, we're in a hard place right now as a district. We have new leadership, declining enrollment, and it's requiring us to make some substantial budget cuts, and we have both a bond and a levy on the horizon. We can't keep making little cuts and hope our problems get better. We make some big changes now to make this the district that we want. Some of the changes I'm suggesting are a citizen advisory group that meets at the start of the year and makes recommendations to the district as the enrollment numbers come in. I know Dr. Kalahar is currently working on a version of this to start in the 24-25 school year. I had the idea of a YouTube channel. No one else has vetted this, so bear with me. But a way to brainstorm and put things out there so that we're not dealing with things that we've never heard before, and we're able to introduce ideas and not have that be a scary thing. And then third thing is a foundation to oversee fundraising for the district. This would be a way to equitably distribute donations across the district and potentially provide additional staffing needs without additional costs to the district. Lastly, and I suppose the biggest change, is that I'm voting for scenario 1 to close Columbia for the 24-25 school year. As I said, I moved schools quite a bit as a kid. Each time my mom would tell me that it was a chance to meet new kids and see a new place. She made it seem like an opportunity, and parents, guardians, and teachers, you have the power to change how Columbia students see this move. The story you tell them matters. They will be moving with a lot of familiar faces, including some of their old staff, and hopefully that will help ease the transition to their new home. I know that there have been a lot of comments about what will happen if the board decides to close Columbia Elementary, but one that stuck with me the most was that a broken bowl carries no soup. Every speaker from the Columbia community, staff, students, and parents made it clear that Columbia is a very special place, and closing will break apart that community. I'm hoping that we can look at this in a different way. A broken bowl may not carry soup, but it takes a lot of broken glass to make a stained glass window. I understand the district and the board will have to regain your trust, but hopefully once we do, we can make something beautiful together.
Thank you. I also have some comments. First, some general editorial. I appreciate the comments of my colleagues, and I agree wholeheartedly with each and every one of you. I agree the district did not adequately communicate the initial plans to potentially consolidate or close Columbia. And like many of you, I was frustrated by the announcement without prior notice or discussion. I acknowledge and understand there's been a loss of public trust as a result. However, I do not believe the district staff and the board I do believe the district staff and the board understands the hard work that needs to be done to rebuild that trust and accountability and are making appropriate strides in that direction. It may not have been handled perfectly, and I appreciate Tucker's suggestions on how we can and must do better when with communication and collaboration. But it also doesn't void the issue at hand. And I probably am much more analytical in this than others, but in making this decision, we've had the opportunity to review and consider the written analysis prepared by the district on February 13th with updates, public comments made at board meetings from January 23rd to present, public hearings conducted on March 21st and April 18th, budget committee meetings with the parent advisory group on April 29th, and comments received via email. Having said that, it's still been a bit disappointing to continue to hear comments that the district is not listening when the budget updates have been regularly provided in direct response to these questions that we receive via email, in person, and comment. I personally participated in that meeting regarding the Cougar plan, and I think there are great ideas in that plan. And it was across the table, communicating with the folks making the presentation, asking questions, getting answers. And there are some good collaborative ideas in there. And I think we'll build on some of that in the future, but it doesn't fix the problem right now. There have been a multitude of comments in support and opposed to the closure. And where suggestions regarding cost-cutting options have been made, we've asked the district staff to evaluate them and provide comment. We've carefully considered all the suggestions raised, And as I mentioned just a minute ago, many of the suggestions will continue to be evaluated as cost-cutting measures going forward. This isn't a one-year decision. This is a redesign of our district essentially to face challenges that are hitting the entire state. So I understand it's an emotional decision for many families and staff. It's been a little bit disappointing to hear some of the staffs and parents that are opposed to the closure demeaning or disrespecting the other staff in our district. I think ultimately we need to keep in mind that we are one district, and regardless of the decision, we need to work together and support each other to the benefit of all students who are watching us as the adults go through this process. I've been encouraged by the teachers who have reached out. Maria read one of the emails that we received that I am confident that our staff are fully capable in every building that we have and will welcome and take care of each and every one of our students. But again, I understand the emotions. I just hope that if we have to deal with difficult decisions going forward in the future, that we keep that in mind. Our students are watching us. We are one community. The district has consulted a variety of external sources to validate the proposal, including the ESD for both verification of the trends, suggestions of the numbers themselves, and Davis demographics. I think it's also important to keep in mind the board is a group of elected parent volunteers. We don't work in the district every day. We don't have oversight of daily operations. We rely on the guidance of our professionals that we employ to help figure out what is in the best interest of each and every student in the district. And we presume that they have our promise statement at the heart of everything they do. Over the last 90 days, I've had the opportunity to discuss any questions I've had with the district staff related to the potential closure. And I understand members of the public have been concerned about a lack of board discussion on the topic, but we have each had the opportunity to consult Dr. Kalahar and any of the staff at any point with any questions we individually have. I personally felt like we were a little pressured to remain neutral on this. And I felt it was important that each board member be able to reach their decision on their own. So while we've all had opportunity to gain resources, I think we've been able to independently process them and not over influence any one or the other. So like I said, I was a little bit more analytical, kind of putting together my findings and conclusions, I call them, to sort of support my own decision regarding the closure. So first, the proposal is legal, and legal process was followed as required by state law and district policy. The district's not required to follow laws or processes from other states. The district published and even updated its written analysis to make sure it was responsive to questions and addressing all concerns. The district conducted 2 public hearings and allowed for comment at each and every hearing. The process was not flawless, and we certainly have room for improvement, but it was compliant. The proposal is objective and not unreasonable. The district is facing declining enrollment with no end in sight in the next year, although we are hopeful it will reverse with developments related to Microsoft and Amazon. That's just not happening next year. The district's already cut staffing over the last year as a budget adjustment measure and is proposing to cut up to 60 additional staff through this proposal. Further staff cuts may be detrimental to providing services and operating programs throughout the district. The district has reduced or frozen administrative salaries over the last year. The reduction is one of multiple solutions working together, including changing middle and high school schedules. Although there have been alternatives presented, none of them appear to be reasonable at this time. I don't believe that cutting all of our athletic and extracurricular programs is in the best interest of our students. The district's financial position and proposal has been vetted by third parties, including the ESD, and the ESD has confirmed that it's a reasonable response to our budget. Columbia is the only school within boundaries that are able to be accommodated by the other area elementary schools without a full redistrict. Columbia is facing the most significant enrollment decline, over 26% over the last 8 years. It has similar demographics, near identical to Lincoln and other local schools. Redistricting has been considered, but would result in moving the same amount of students around multiple buildings, thereby meaning all buildings would be underperforming. It would also exacerbate the impacts district-wide. Columbia is our smallest school, although not designed to be a small school without projected growth. While small classrooms are great, this is not the model we were built for. The utilization statistics, in my opinion, were fairly eye-opening. We can't afford to operate buildings until we find a better purpose. It's not sustainable. There's sufficient space available for students and staff to move into new buildings. We will not violate contract requirements if there is a minor violation, the premiums and the contracts will be less than the cost to increase staffing. The success at Columbia is undeniable, but it's also largely attributed to small class sizes and underutilization. Each student, I'm confident, will have access to the same programs and supports to succeed in their new schools. There is no evidence presented that adding students will decrease the services to other students at the other schools. Columbia staff are exceptional at what they do. I acknowledge this, and their resources should be shared and modeled throughout the district. The district staff and other buildings are highly qualified and capable of meeting the needs of all students under their care, including those who may be moving from Columbia. Safety will continue to be a top priority, and the district is committed to working with the city to improve paths to school. Based on the facts and data provided, the closure of the school will actually reduce spending and prevent a recurring impact on the budget. I acknowledge there are other proposals that could save similar amounts of money, but many of these proposals are a one-time realization, and continuing to operate Columbia without a clear plan for other uses will perpetuate losses on an annual basis. Delaying the closure will result in additional impacts next year, including loss of additional staff and programs, and could cause the district to be on an OSPI monitoring plan. It will jeopardize the district's ability to adequately serve all of its students, bring us below our fund balance reserves, and especially jeopardize the needs of the high risk or special need. It's unlikely that reversing the proposal or revisiting it next year will result in any less trauma to students or families. To be honest, in some ways, I feel like the damage has already been done, and now we have to move forward as quickly as we can to repair and rebuild. If the closure doesn't happen this year, it will be likely to be proposed again next year, and going through all the same turmoil and emotion that we're feeling this year. I truly believe the district needs to start healing. So with all that said, do I want to close the school? No. This is where one of the comments tonight hit it on the head. This is where the brain conflicts with the heart. But we're elected stewards of taxpayer funds, and so long as this model is not sustainable, we have to do what is in the best interest of the entire district. This is not just about fixing a budget issue. This is about a systematic improvement and avoiding detrimental impacts throughout the district for the long term. I'm incredibly proud of the work of the parents and staff to be collaborative and bring thoughtful suggestions to the board. I agree the Cougar Plan has some great ideas, and let's build on that going forward. And I understand it's been hard to provide comment, pour your heart out to us when we're stoic and non-responsive, but that's the nature of the forum. I do want you to know, like my colleagues have shared, you've been heard. We share your emotion, we share your pain, we feel what you're going through. I'm hopeful this effort to be collaborative and productive will continue as we navigate school finances and operations in a competitive landscape, challenged by inadequate state funding and increased competition. I've been encouraged by the comments of district staff and other buildings that they are excited to work with new students and that they will work together with Columbia staff to improve education for each and every student in their building and the district. I realize that change is hard and this is painful and an emotional decision, but under the facts and circumstances, it's the most fiscally responsible and in the best interest of all students in the district. Is there any other comments or discussion? That being said, it's been moved and seconded. We've had our discussion. This calls for a roll call vote. I will go in reverse position order. So position 5, Martin.
Aye.
Tucker.
Aye.
Miranda.
Aye.
Maria.
Aye.
And I am also aye. Any opposed? No. So motion carries. Thank you. And we will move on now to the superintendent report. Thank you.
Kat, thank you. I want to proceed with the superintendent's report. Often the superintendent's report is where I share positive things that have happened in the district. I do want to continue with that because the things that I would like to share deserve that. But I also want to honor the magnitude of the decision that just happened. And I will keep keep the decorum in light of that. So a couple of things I do want to share though, that are positive. Baseball academic state champs, athletic director Jim Beeson was given the amazing information that our Wenatchee High School baseball team has won the academic state championship title for 4A schools. The team will be recognized at the upcoming state championships on May 24th and 25th. On Thursday evening, I had the honor of attending the Nurse of the Year Awards at Pybus Event Center, along with CTE Director Jake Buchholz. I was able to watch Carrie Baker receive the Nurse Educator of the Year Award for the work that she does in health occupations and her passion for training CNAs in the Valley. Her stories of the impact that her students have on their patients were amazing and emotional, and the fact that they realize the huge connection that they have to their patients in the health profession was very moving. We also were able to watch Tracy Kasnick, program coordinator for CTE, receive the Lifetime Achievement Award. It was a great night of celebration of nursing, and the Wenatchee School District was very well represented. Also, Wednesday evening, Wenatchee High School brought back what used to be an annual pageant for high school juniors and senior boys, Mr. Panther. Mart and I were fortunate enough to judge this event and learn a ton about 10 young men at the Wenatchee School District, or in the Wenatchee High School. We were able to watch them dance, show other talents such as drums, piano, playing the recorder, cooking, eating, and gymnastics. Overall, this was a very entertaining evening, and Jake Devereaux walked away with the title of Mr. Panther. Spring sports move into district tournaments for boys and girls varsity tennis and golf, track and fast pitch softball. And this Thursday is our district track and field event at Wenatchee High School. It begins at 3:15. So that is the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Moving on to,
Nice.
all right, moving on to board communication. Start at that end.
I don't have anything tonight.
I will share that I attended the poetry reading at Pioneer Middle School, being conducted by teacher Zach Johnson. I think that's his last name. It was a really neat event. It was, I received a personal invitation to attend, and I said, yeah, why not? It was a really neat event to see eighth graders express in a different way. Very eye-opening to see, what's going through the minds of young teenagers. Also, Julie and I had the honor of attending the groundbreaking event for our softball field. That was really neat. It was really neat to see our some other elected officials, such as Chelan County Sheriff, thank you, Morrison, and our softball girls. Our softball team was also there. Some parents that have been advocating for this for many years. So it was great to see the good turnout we had on a nice, beautiful day. So that's it. Thank you. When did that end? Board communication?
I almost said I'll save something up for next board meeting, but over the last 2 weeks, I've had a lot of people say to me, I didn't know that. You need to get the good news out. And we talk about how important it is to do a long-term rework on the district, that we need to work on acknowledged missteps and establish trust, but also get out the word of the wonderful things that are happening inside the school district. So there was a creative economy delegation from Kyrgyzstan visited Wenatchee High School CTE, Career and Technical, and the Wenatchee Valley Skills Center on May the 2nd. It's part of a U.S. Congress Open World program, with Rotary acting as the Wenatchee Valley host contractor here. The delegation included senior policy advisors to the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, and Strategic Development Association and Think Tank Development. It's a high-powered delegation. We thought the focus was on high-tech new industries, and their itinerary included public and private enterprises in the technology sector and our elected public leaders here. I thought that the district's CTE activities, being very innovative in that area, should be included, and so they were for a day. It turned out that the real enthusiasm was about the entrepreneurial nature of the district's CTE programs and how they don't just open up career pathways. Yes, the technology and medicine and mechanics and graphics and agriculture is really important, but that they take a base activity area and develop into new applications and extend it into new ventures. It's precisely the kind of creative employment opportunities for entrance to the workplace that this delegation from a country exactly on the opposite side of the world to us came to learn about. So this district, in one aspect only, there are many other areas in the district, showed world-class performance and was recognized by highly qualified people from the opposite side of the world. So that's just one little soundbite of the amazing things that if we are going to build this district and its future, education is our future, it's our asset that we need to respect. So and by the way, Tammy Lopushinsky, who isn't here anymore, 2 music awards, one statewide and one ESD-wide. Congratulations, and Columbia Strings, wow.
I don't have much either, except I did enjoy going to the groundbreaking for the softball complex. It worked out. I was back in time from my trip, a little bit jet lagged, but able to still come celebrate the girls. And I'm really excited for that facility, and it's on time and around budget, but looking forward to watching what they do with that facility. If there is nothing else, then I will adjourn the meeting.